This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishikesh.
Welcome to Square Feet, India's only property real estate show on the radio space. Pleased to welcome, and we've been screaming it from the rooftops all through yesterday, and also a post going up on the Facebook page early this morning, looking very sharp, is Jonathan Duncan. He's the International Director for the Berkeley Group, MENA and India markets, and that is the Middle East and North America and India markets. And we're streaming live audio across the nation on www.onecast.in. That's numeral 1cast.in, anywhere in India. On your radio sets in Mumbai City, 94.3 on the FM band. And only if you're not driving in the backseat of a chauffeur-driven car or a radio taxi. Then we're streaming video live on facebook.com/radio1.mum, radio1.mum. Obviously, if you're at work or at home without a radio set, that might be a great option for you to catch video. Jonathan, great to see you. How are you doing?
Namaste. Yeah, it's very good to be here. So thank you very much for having me on the show. And it's great to be in India.
Yeah, it's like a normal English gloomy day, isn't it?
I know, it's home from home.
It's not clouds, it's mostly smoke.
Yeah.
And pollution. But at least it looks the same.
It looks the same. That's all that matters.
How often do you come into India?
Starting to come in a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
We're starting to see a bit more traction, obviously coming in from India back into London. So coming in from Dubai, where I actually reside, a couple more trips, and hopefully many more to come down the line.
So you're an Englishman who currently lives in Dubai. Is that the way it is? Or what is your nationality?
Yeah, British, English, and then I've travelled the world. So I've been Singapore, and then having lived in Singapore for a fair bit, then moved into the Middle East and been there for the last 5 years now.
You like Asia and the Middle East, don't you?
Work takes me there, which is always a good start. But no, I think that the rest of the world is intriguing me.
And whereabouts in the UK are you from originally?
London, obviously, the biggest and the best. No, South London, so Croydon's where I was born and brought up.
Ah, that's lovely. Some great musicians coming out of that area, yeah?
Some amazing ones.
Some amazing ones, yeah.
And some interesting music as well.
Interesting music as well. So, one of the reasons you're here is that the Berkeley Group has decided to focus its attention to India. We're going to come to that. But first and foremost, you spell it like Berkeley in the US. I mean, there's a music school called the Berkeley School of Music. And you often get that, don't you? Why do you spell it with a B-R-K when you actually pronounce it as Berkeley, like Niles Berkeley, the musician?
I get this question quite a lot, as you might imagine. The kind of theory and the rumours are that our chairman back in the day was sat on Berkeley Square in London. And that's where they formed the business. Now, I unfortunately don't have the exact answer on that, but that's where the rumours are and that's where rumours sit. But yeah, it's pronounced Berkeley.
And sometimes it's better as an employee to not ask certain questions.
It's one where I think the rumours are nice, so we'll leave it at that.
So India, man, the Berkeley Group focusing its attention here. Why here and now?
I think there's a number of reasons. I mean, we're obviously starting to see ourselves, a greater number of residents, Indians, looking to invest within London and within the group itself for a variety of reasons, which I'm sure we'll come on to. But on top of that, there's wider reports. So a report that came out last year is that 22% of prime central London was actually bought out by Indians. Now, we haven't got the data as to whether that's resident and non-resident, and I'd argue a fair portion of that is probably NRI. But it shows that London is now, not only a true global city, but it's very much on the Indian radar itself.
What is it about London that appeals so strongly to Indians? I know that, as when I go there as a tourist in the UK, I have friends and family all over London and Manchester, and even, as far down as Portsmouth and Southsea. So I love the UK as a tourist, but the average investor, the property investor, buyer, what appeals to him or her as far as London is concerned?
I think there's two elements to that. There's obviously the global appeal, and we've got the Knight Frank Wealth Report, which I'm attending this coming weekend, so tomorrow in fact. And London sits number 2 and vacillates between London and New York as to where's number 1 for the ultra high net worths to place their money in terms of a safe investment. So that's obviously the true global appeal from that investment side of things. But then there's the cultural aspects, and I think one of the big key factors for a lot of the international markets is education. So we have 4 of the top 7 UK universities based in London, If you actually then take out Oxford and Cambridge, that's 4 of the next 5.
True that.
Without knowing every city in the world and every other university in the world, I can't imagine and I can't think of any other cities that has that kind of high quality university education all in one city itself. We've got 20 of the 91 best universities in the UK, either in London or within easy access in surrounding areas of London. And again, so there's such a variety when it comes to the educational aspects. And we have 1 in 4 students within London are international as well. So that, I think, is one of the big appeals for a lot of people, especially India, to be educated in the UK. US is obviously another big market for them. And then on top of that, you have culture, you have heritage, you have the history. We have, on the last census in 2011, we had 550,000 Indians living in London,
wow,
which is just under 7% of the population. So you have friends and family and cultural, benefits of such a city. So to try and nail it down onto one point, I think is very difficult. But thankfully, with 15 or 16 different reasons, it makes my job that much easier.
Well, I have to say you've forgotten 2 very, very important reasons. Lords and the Oval for cricket crazy Indians.
and I'll be there to watch India versus England later this summer. So yeah, it's one where Lords is amazing. And I grew up just down the road from the Oval as well. So admittedly that was an oversight on my behalf for sure.
Just a big wave out to the coolest CEO and MD in the whole wide world. That's Vineet Singh Hukmani. He was the most incredible vocalist, along with running this wonderful radio station. We're going to come to Enrique Iglesias and I'm a Freak, and back with the excellent Jonathan Duncan on Square Feet. Enrique Iglesias, I'm a Freak, 924 on Square Feet, India's only property realty show on the radio space. Jonathan Duncan, International Director for the Berkeley Group, MENA and India markets. Over a decade of experience in the industry. He began his career at one of London's largest estate agencies covering all of London, and over the last 6 years he's been with Berkeley, and his experience is Singapore, Middle East, North Africa and India. More conversation.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishikesh.
Streaming audio all across the nation on www.onecast.in, numeral 1cast.in, and that's online, and of course 94.3 on the FM band on your radio sets, and now streaming video live on facebook.com/radio1. Facebook.com/HRISHIKAY. That's HRISHIKAY on Facebook. So how easy is it to buy a property in London as a resident Indian, Jonathan?
It's the same as if you were a resident anywhere else in the world and in the UK. The regulations are, flat and fair to all is probably the nicest way of putting it. In terms of the taxes, in terms of the process with the solicitors, in terms of reservation going all the way through to completion, everything is a flat kind of fair sounding board. In terms of what we're actually finding from ourselves and dealing with a lot of residents is the understanding of that process. And that's what we're trying to do, and we're trying to educate and we're trying to explain to people what that process is. It's very simple, and also as a buyer you're very well protected by the UK law. You have to have a solicitor working on your behalf. You place reliance on that solicitor to make sure that what you're buying is what we say you're buying. There's also obviously stringent laws in the UK about Property Misdescriptions Act. So if we say you've got a view of the River Thames and you don't, we're going to be in serious trouble as a developer. So it's very well covered and very secure, and I'd say actually quite easy, for anybody, including resident Indians, to buy, London property.
That's interesting. And you know what high net worth individuals in India do? They'll buy lavish properties and then they just do it up, break it down to scratch. That, I imagine, is not easy to do in London town, considering, you have such strict heritage laws, yeah?
Yes and no. In terms of, I think it's if you find the right apartment or you find the right building, again, that can be done. I think if you're doing it to try and make money, it's very difficult. It's such an established city. You have specialists in each local pocket of London who know the back streets, who know the pricing, in that area. So they will be able to find out on an apartment that needs to be redone probably a lot quicker than somebody internationally. They'll also know the builders. They'll have the ability to actually develop and do that for a lot less money and probably make more money. So an international investor moving in to try and develop or, on a small scale, I think is actually quite difficult because of the competition. Sure. But it can be done. Of course it can. And
the perception, obviously, is it's really expensive to get into the real estate market in London. You want to counter that, or do you agree with that?
I think there's again a yes and no answer to that question. I would say no. But then I've born there and brought up there, and I think that the perception, unfortunately, is wrong. Two things. What I've learnt and picked up is that Mumbai and Delhi, obviously the two big cities and centres within India, are very similar in price to London, actually. And if you look at us and across our portfolio, we start at 200,000 or just over 200,000 pounds at our kind of entry point, which is just over 1 crore 80 lakh, around that kind of amount. And then we go up to obviously 20 million plus for some of our bigger penthouses in central London, where it's 180 crore. So, as I said, it's a yes and no. You can get in at what I would call a reasonably affordable, amount, especially when you compare it to some of the other centres in the world, where in the perception, you're right, is I can't afford London. My kids might be going there, and I'd like to buy something for them to study, to live in whilst they're studying, but I can't afford it. Additionally, we obviously have some good payment plans. So when you're actually buying stuff, that is off plan over 1 or 2 years, we'll have a deferred payment plan where it's 10, 20, sometimes 30% over the construction period, and then the remaining amount on completion. So with LRS and obviously the ability now to remit $250,000 per person over each year, with a staged payment plan, properties at £1-2 million even with a family of 4 over a couple of tax cycles is actually quite achievable as well.
Okay, any website where people can get in touch and see what Berkeley has for Indian investors, prospective, properties? Yeah.
Yep. So our website, which is www.barclaygroup.co.uk, obviously has our entire
slower. Barclaygroup.uk. Is that it?
Co.uk.
Barclaygroup.co.uk.
Yeah.
Now it is BERKLEYGROUP.co.uk. Yeah. Fantastic.
And just to add to that, we're here with, Knight Frank. I have a couple of other key partners like Sotheby's as well, who I work with on the ground here. They know our developments exceptionally well. So I think if I was to give some advice to anybody that's listening and wants to know a bit more, get in contact with one of those two. They have the understanding of all of our developments. Our website is a very good snippet, but it's also a bit like a kid in a candy shop. We have 60 developments across London. If you come and speak to the experts on the ground, they'll actually be able to direct you to the right ones that, for your own requirements.
Elvis versus JXL, a little less conversation. After this, some messages, and when we come back, more Jonathan Duncan. You have any comments or questions? Get cracking. 1 space your comment or 1 space your question and name to 53650. 53650 is the in-studio SMS line. On Twitter as well as Facebook, you go to the search bar, you type HRISHIKAY will pop up. You tweet out your comment or question for Jonathan Duncan along with your name. You post in the timeline inbox on Facebook and facebook.com/radio1.mum, our official page. There again, post in the timeline inbox the question or comment. Happy to bring it up with Jonathan Duncan. See you in a bit.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishikesh.
Jonathan Duncan is here. He's International Director at the Berkeley Group, MENA and India markets. And we're talking about London. Rising amounts of resident Indians buying overseas, with London as their number one destination. Investors looking further afield to get the best residential property investment opportunities in light of what's happening in the local market. We're streaming video live only if you're not driving, you're at home or at the office without a radio set, on Twitter and Periscope at HRISHIKAY. Live audio online across the nation on www.onecast.in, numeral 1cast.in, and of course on your radio sets here in Mumbai CD 94.3 on the FM band. So, when do you think is the right time to buy in London?
Well, now would be the nice answer, of course, and the salesy answer. I think it depends very much on each person's reasoning for buying. I think that's got to be the first and foremost factor that comes into anybody's decision making, is what's the right time for them. But if you were to take that out and you were just to look at the kind of economics and how I see things and how some of the research pieces that are coming out are saying, currency is probably the biggest factor of international money, and therefore when looking at London, the currency play is probably the biggest impact on when to buy. You could argue, for example, that with sterling having increased, especially to the dollar, over 10% in the last 3 months, that you're actually missing the boat. And the London property market is relatively flat this year. Some parts of London are going up, some parts are going down, due to various reasons. But if you actually look at that across the board, London is going to be relatively flat this year, is what we're expecting, from the various research houses that are giving their predictions. So if you're losing potentially 10% on currency, you could argue that you've already missed the boat. But I think when you actually look at Brexit and everything else, it's about the personal situation, it's about running through, it's about trying to utilise your LRS, especially if we're talking about resident Indians. And I do think now, if you can move some money, obviously this financial year, and then look to do so again early next financial year, you've got the ability to get a good deal with sterling, and with Brexit, prices are maybe a little bit softer than they would have been if Brexit didn't come into play. And I think in a long-term view, when you look back in 5, 10, 15 years' time, I think this Brexit opportunity that exists will be deemed as a very good time to have been buying in London.
So essentially what you're saying, Jonathan, is that Brexit is an opportunity. You want to just delve into that a little more? Yeah,
I mean, it's the elephant in the room. Every time I meet somebody, it's Brexit this, Brexit that, and look, we aren't out of Brexit, so I can't sit here and predict the future, and I can't say it's going to be rosy going forward. But the markets will always react either positively or negatively to uncertainty. That every market wants certainty, and then they can actually react accordingly. As we progress through those Brexit negotiations, we're getting more and more clarity about what is happening, and therefore the uncertainty and the fear that exists in any of the markets that are related to that will diminish. So my view is that the longer the conversations go on, the more clarity comes into all markets, and therefore with the market, in property market in particular, with such an international appeal of London, if sterling is starting to increase as we're seeing as clarity comes through, and if that does continue, I would argue very much that actually waiting will get you a worse deal, in terms of just when you factor all of those things in, and therefore the opportunity is there. If you actually take the London market pre-Brexit, it was fundamentally sound. The economy was doing well. There was no. It wasn't. Brexit is almost this red herring, I might even call it. And it's created a bit of uncertainty. It's created that lull. It's created the pause in what was otherwise a good, strong, healthy market. International appeal. As I said it earlier, the Knight Frank Wealth Report. It sits at number 2, just behind New York, and it vacillates between number 1 and 2 with New York on a yearly basis. So it's not going anywhere. And even with Brexit and the uncertainty that sits around the banking sector, the likes of Deutsche Bank, and again, if there's one bank in the world that you'd think has a pretty good understanding of what's going to come through, is Deutsche Bank. Now, they've committed to a 25-year lease and 5,000 members of staff to be in London. Now, that's happened after Brexit. You've got the likes of Google, Facebook, Apple, all have committed large commercial space and commercial deals post-Brexit. So if the big corporates, and some of the biggest banks in mainland Europe are committing to London, you've got to question why. Now, don't take my opinion necessarily, but these guys have big research teams. They know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
So I'd follow those guys in taking advantage, and that's why I kind of say I think it's an opportunity at the moment.
Yeah, basically enormous potential is what Jonathan Duncan says. Shakira, Hips Don't Lie, back in a bit, 9:46. It's Square Feet, and I'm Hrishikesh. Hips Don't Lie, Shakira, 9:50. Streaming video live now on Instagram at HRISHIKY. Square Feet, India's only property real estate show on the radio space. Jonathan Duncan, International Director for the Berkeley Group, MENA and India markets. He's talking to me about London town. He just said Brexit is an enormous opportunity, great potential. Now key competitor markets in London. We're still streaming audio live on the show. www.onecast.in all over the nation. Numeral 1cast.in and of course 94.3 on your radio sets. More conversation.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishikesh.
Radio 1.
So key competitor markets to London, what would they be, Jonathan?
Or none, obviously. I mean, kind of London is London. No, look, I think realistically, I've said it throughout the kind of conversation we've had this morning, it's very much a personal preference. Somebody that is looking at Dubai, which is obviously a big international market, for Indians to be purchasing in, are probably looking at in Dubai for a different reason than they would be in London. I would argue probably New York. And again, the Wealth Report, says exactly that. It's always between London and New York from a global appeal. And I think outside of the time difference to get there, New York being, I think, a 16-hour flight and London being 7. But take that aside, both cities offer very similar, opportunities for all of the different factors that make them truly global cities. But international markets, you have the likes of, obviously, Dubai is a big one, Singapore, huge Indians that, sit within Singapore itself. Australia, I think back in the day, used to have a bit of an appeal, maybe not quite so much now. But internationally, I think New York is obviously the other one from that side. Within the UK, I don't think there is one. There are other big cities, of course there are. You know, you have Birmingham, Manchester, and some people are looking at those. But I wouldn't say, I would say, and I would argue that it doesn't have the same appeal, and it doesn't have the longevity. You know, London has, according to various reports, been doubling every 10 years for the last 30, 40 years. And again, that's very much an annualised and compounded number. You've had, you know, ups and downs within that period. But it's such a solid, you know, foundation. You know, where the global markets can operate. You deal with both Asian markets and the American markets all in one day. So, you know, again, I like to promote London, so I'd say it is the financial capital of the world. And, you know, I'm sure Paris might argue with me, or, you know, stuff like that. But there's no one reason why I think London sits above and continues to survive. It's that diversity. It appeals to so many different demographics, so many different nationalities, and we see that as well. We see a huge number of, you know, different nationalities buying within our portfolio, and that I think means that it's going to stand the test of time.
Pooja Punjabi on Twitter. Namaste, Jonathan. Drawing a comparison in the pricing of Mumbai and Delhi, you said one can afford a property in London in about 2 crore INR, Indian National Rupee. Curious to know what type of property. Would it be a studio apartment or something else in terms of number of bedrooms? So you said 1 crore 80, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
I did. Yes.
Yeah. So let's say 2 crores. What would that get us in London town?
Yeah. Maybe I was a little bit grey there, and I was doing a very good sales job, so I'm glad I did that. We're just on the outskirts of London at that kind of price point.
Yeah.
If you were to be looking on the inside of the M25, which is where most people would consider London, you're probably closer to the 350 to 400,000 pounds mark within our portfolio. But if you were to look at that 1 crore 80, you'd be looking at, we've got a 1-bedroom apartment in Reading, so it's a good university town, and that's also got the fast train into London at the moment, and it's got the new Crossrail.
Is there a music festival? The Reading Music Festival?
Reading Music Festival, again, so easy access, and almost everything that we do, all of our 60 developments are either within London or within easy access and within an hour's commute of London. So at that kind of price point, as I mentioned earlier, it's not as expensive as people think, and if it is an investment purchase, that's maybe actually one of our better ones. It's a lower entry point. You have your universities just around the corner. You also have a big business park, again, just around the corner, and you have the fast train that already exists and the new Crossrail route coming in. So we're seeing quite a lot of our international investors look at Reading, you know, commuter town in and with that lower budget point. If you're looking within that M25, you want to be on the tube line, for example, and you want to feel like you're part of London, I'd say it's 350,000, which, just off the top of my head, you're then looking probably about 2.5, maybe 3, you know, crore at that kind of entry point from there.
Wow. Yeah, that's Mumbai pricing, lesser. So Pooja, that answers your question. You can actually go and check it out. Reading is actually spelled R-E-A-D-I-N-G. So it's spelled like reading, but it's pronounced Reading. So that gives you that's a very pointed answer. Many congratulations to you for hitting the nail on the head and getting to the point. So it's a 1 BHK, so to say, in Reading. That's what it'd get you, around 2 crores. You two, Mysterious Ways, a last leg of conversation up ahead. So post the song, we're going to go into some messages. So 1 space your comment, or 1 space your question, and your name to 53650. 53650 is the in-studio SMS line. On Twitter as well as Facebook, you go to the search bar, you type HRISHIKAY, it'll pop up. You could tweet out or post in the timeline inbox with your name, and facebook.com/radio1.mum, our official page. There again, pop a question in the timeline inbox or just a comment. Happy to bring it up on the show. See you in a bit.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishikesh.
Radio 1.
Last leg of conversation with Jonathan Duncan, International Director for the Berkeley Group, Middle East, North Africa, beg your pardon, and India markets. And I'm in conversation with him about London town as the ideal destination for HNIs, high net worth individuals, right here in India. We're streaming audio live across the nation on www.onecast.in, numeral 1cast.in, 94.3 on the FM band on your radio sets. And last but not the least, what's the profile of Indian buyers that you're seeing purchase within Berkeley Group developments?
A bit of everything. Again, we're very fortunate, you know, with 60 developments that covers, as we've just mentioned, stuff on the outskirts of London within the commuter belt, and kind of university towns like Reading, all the way through to the heart of Zone 1, prime central London offerings, and big penthouses at the top of tall towers. We have such a varied collection. Again, houses, we have houses on the outskirts and all the way into the likes of Chiswick and Wimbledon. So we see a bit of everything. I would argue the top 3 or 4 reasons and the top 3 or 4 demographics that we're seeing are education, and looking to either buy with the future hope that their kids are being educated, or they know they're heading to London and therefore buying something for them to study, to live in whilst they study. And then there's the investment angle. I think a lot of people are using the currency play at the moment. They're using the Brexit, and I talk about it as an opportunity, but the situation that we sit in at the moment to invest within the UK and diversify their portfolio. A lot of people have invested typically in India and Dubai, and they want to divest out of that. They want to kind of broaden their investment selections. And then personal choice. There are still those trophy assets that are being bought. There are still I want to have a home so that when I go there in the summer with my kids, that we have somewhere that's our own place to live, rather than staying in a hotel and not actually having a tangible asset at the end of the day. So a bit of everything. I don't think there's really one answer, unfortunately, to that. But then that's a good thing. That's one of the reasons we're here.
So what sets the Berkeley Group aside from its competitors in London town? And if you had to pick one of your 60 developments to buy, which would you choose? Trick question. It's like asking a mother to choose between many children.
Yeah, exactly. I've got 60 children. Well, I shall say they're mine. I mean, I work for the company. If they were mine, I'd probably have somebody else here. But
true that.
No, look, I think in terms of what sets us aside, our quality. I think there's 2 or 3 key things. We build places. We're very much about placemaking and building communities and making sure that we don't build an apartment and just walk away. And I think that's something that we've been very conscious of as a group. We've won the Queen's Award, which is a very impressive award to win in the UK. But we've actually won it twice, which is we're the only developer to have won that. And that's excellence over a 4-year period across a whole range of different aspects. So it's about creating places. It's making sure that we've got the right commercial units for the right area. We've got hotels on site. We've got transport connections. So one of our developments, we're actually building the Crossrail station in the development itself, which improves not only the development but the wider area. And I think there's very few, if not no others, really within London that are on the scale of us in terms of doing those large regeneration projects. Our joint ventures, when we have gone into joint ventures, are with big national entities. So we've got the National Grid and Thames Water. The only developer that they wanted to work with was us, because we have the scale and the ability to actually create places and environments where people want to live. So I think those are probably the key reasons that sets us aside. There are other developers. I'm not naive enough to think that we're the only one. I'd argue we're the best. Of course I would. But I think that's what sets us aside and makes us appeal maybe a little bit more than anybody else.
Okay. Before you go, just your website again, where people can get in touch with you if they're wanting to invest in London.
So it's www.berkeley, which is BERKELEY, and then group group.co.uk. And I like the fact that I managed to not pick a good development, so I'll leave it. I'll leave that one.
That one.
There's 4 or 5, so if someone gets in touch, then I can present to them on a one-to-one basis.
Well, how's the rugby going, mate? I saw a picture of you on Facebook, rushing with a rugby ball.
Yeah. Look, it's my sport. It's kind of what I've been playing. I did play cricket back in the day very badly, so I kind of gave that one up.
I have to say this. I mean, you can't have an Englishman in studio and not, poke fun at him and rib him about the English cricket team being absolutely rubbish compared to India.
At the moment, come on. I know.
But rugby's your thing, yeah. Great.
Rugby's my thing, and even then, we haven't had a good couple of weeks in the Six Nations. So. It comes and goes, and we had obviously in cricket we had a bad Ashes series with Australia, and I think there's potential issues there that need to be resolved. I don't know, it's not my forte in the bag to kind of talk, but I'm sure a lot of listeners have different views on that. And rugby for me is the sport. Try and keep me fit and healthy, especially whilst travelling.
Jonathan, this has been fun. Thank you for rolling by, and much love.
You.
Cheers. Here's Sean Paul, Dua Lipa, No Lie.